Hey, welcome to another episode of Q&A with Jay. Today's question gets a little bit more personal as it relates to how vulnerable you are or should be as a leader. So here's the question that was sent in. Is it important to show vulnerability as a leader? I can barely say that word, but the idea here is how transparent do I want to be with how I'm thinking, how I'm feeling, and ultimately when I mess up. This is a tricky question because I think you can fall off both sides of the cliff. You can be way overexposed from a transparency and vulnerability standpoint, and I think you can be way underexposed as well. And let me describe what I mean. I think that some leaders, and this is just true actually of parenting as well, but some leaders or parents want to come across as always having it together. They want to come across as everything's perfect, they don't make mistakes. As a result, they don't apologize for anything. They're just plowing forward. Then there's the opposite cliff that you can fall off of, where you over-apologize for everything. Everything's your fault. You're personally taking responsibility for all kind of stuff, and you're upset all the time as a result of that. Neither one of those things are healthy vulnerability as a leader. But I do believe that the best leaders have a certain level of vulnerability. And what I mean by that is when your team submits feedback, for example, our team does a biannual review of each person. There's another video actually where we talk about how we track performance that you may want to check out if you're interested in that. But in this particular exercise, we review people against our core values, and the whole team anonymously reviews me and gives feedback. It would be very easy for me to read that feedback and be like, nah, whatever, they don't know what they're talking about. If there's something negative on that list, which there certainly has been before. But real vulnerability as leadership is being willing to take that feedback, go sit in front of your team and say, hey, some of y'all put me in this category and you gave me kind of a low score. I really appreciate that feedback, and I have noticed where I'm doing some of those things. I'll give you a specific example. I have a tendency to speak too quickly. I, as a result, have a tendency to interrupt people in meetings. I have a tendency to sometimes stifle discussion as a result of that. I also like to jump into projects midstream to try and save them, and often I create more mess than I actually help. So those are two areas where I personally have had to work on improving, and I need other people to go, hey, how do you think I'm doing on this? So you got to have people on your team that aren't just yes people. They're going to constantly tell you you're doing a great job. You need people on your team that are willing to go, hey, this is not going really well, and you're kind of causing the problem. And then you need to be vulnerable enough as a leader to go, wow, I didn't realize that. Okay, yeah, let me work on that. A really great book on this topic, because I think this vulnerability thing relates ultimately to emotional intelligence. There's a book called Emotional Intelligence 2.0. In fact, we're about to do this as a team training. The first part that you actually have to read is very short, and then you take a quiz, and it gives you some scores based on your own kind of personal awareness, your personal management, your social awareness, and your relationship management. And those four areas will really help you grow. So one of my areas of improvement, for example, is I need to work on counting to 10 when I'm thinking about speaking. Well, I don't know if you've ever tried that before, but counting to 10 is a long time when you're sitting in a meeting going, okay, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Because what it's wanting me to do is pause, think about my response, and decide if that's something that I really need to say. Also create space for the rest of the team. So the fact that I'm willing to say those things, although it sounds a little arrogant that I'm admitting that I am really good at vulnerability, but the reality is, like, I have worked really hard on trying to be vulnerable in a way that other people look at that and go, wow, he's willing to say when he screwed up. He's willing to take feedback and work to improve it. Because if you're not willing to do those things as a leader, you shouldn't expect your team to do them either. So how important is vulnerability as a leader? I think it's really important, but be careful about falling off the cliff of being so vulnerable that you expect everybody to be hyper aware of your emotions all the time. Your job as a leader is to serve the team, not the other way around. I hope that's been a helpful answer for you. If you have any other questions around the topic, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave them in the comments below, and I will personally go through and reply to them. Thanks for being here for another episode of Q&A with Jay.